A government low-level minister has just been sacked. He's the MP for Peterborough, Paul Bristow. Paul Bristow. He sounds like a gravy, actually. And he has called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. This is not the government's line. The government has talked about specific pauses to allow more aid into Gaza, but not to call for a ceasefire. The Downing Street has said Paul Bristow has been asked to leave his post in government following comments that were not consistent with the principles of collective responsibility. And, of course, Sir Keir Starmer is already having his own problems with the nuances being put out by Labour frontbenchers in defiance of his own position, which is broadly parallel to the government's position. And Mr. Bristow has said, "My constituents and I are deeply grieving by the heartbreaking and devastating humanitarian crisis now unfolding in Gaza. Thousands have been killed and more than 1 million now displaced. It's difficult to understand how this makes Israel more secure or indeed makes anything better." He's right, of course. He's absolutely right. There's a nuance here, and I think both the Prime Minister and Keir Starmer have got that nuance wrong. And it's not necessary to say that Israel has no right to self-defense. It does. The issue is whether or not Netanyahu has made the right choice given that right. I think he hasn't. And I think he's both endangered the Israeli hostages and those dual nationals, as well as people visiting Gaza. And he's set back the peace process. But I don't suppose that issue is something of great concern to him, as he's not been particularly interested in it for the last 20 years. Likud needs to wake up and deal with reality, not the reality they want, but the reality they've got. The reality they've got is the probability of a two-state solution. And that has now been made significantly harder to achieve. But without it, there is no peace in the Middle East.